Welcome down the rabbit hole, friends. Spoiler alert for Sister Wives. Peyton and Gwen Brown are typical siblings who don't get along. Things are continuing to remain and get more messy between all of the Sister Wives cast, but especially the siblings, specifically Peyton and Gwen. But in my mind, it's not really that big of a deal. It's very typical of two siblings to have differing opinions, life experiences, to not like each other at times, to come back together years later, to never come back together. This is all the stuff that we see in a lot of families, and it's not surprising to me that it's going on among the many, many children in the Brown family. Basically, Gwen uploaded a short video to her fans and subscribers. It's been shared on TikTok, and it addresses her feelings about Peyton Brown and the recent interview that he did. Gwen is basically telling us she wouldn't trust Peyton's opinion. And I'm going to share that video here with you now.
He's the most awful person I've ever had the displeasure of knowing, and I would strongly advise against taking anything he says as fact. I would advise against giving him any kind of support, even if you're just watching the kind of content he puts out, because it does encourage him to continue. Once I can fall asleep at night without heavy medication, I definitely want to talk more about this. I want to talk more about what I've been through, especially this situation, and I definitely have enough trauma that I could probably write a book on just a month of my life. I don't want to address hatred because I feel like it ignites more hatred, and it seems that this is a lot bigger than I originally assumed it would be, so I want to keep it a little minimal, and I want to make sure that I can mentally prepare myself before I actually address this situation. Right now, however, the focus of my life is on school and my marriage and a lot of self-healing, and I appreciate everybody who's reached out, and I hope that I can help dispel some confusion. Thank you so much.
Poor Gwen. It sounds like she's still going through a lot. She's trying to deal with things that really bother and hurt her from her childhood and from her past. She doesn't expand that much on it, but she's telling us that she wouldn't trust Peyton. Okay. I just want to share that as of right now, based upon what's been shared by both parties, Gwen and Peyton, it sounds like a lot of typical things that you see among brothers and sisters and siblings that I'm sure was then magnified 100 times by growing up in a polygamous family and being on TV as well. They certainly had a very unique situation going on. I'm just going to share that it's difficult for me to not take everything with a grain of salt here because, to be quite honest, like many of you have responded on my videos, you've written things to me, and you've let me know, like, you've grown up in really difficult situations. Well, guess what? So did I. My parents didn't raise me. I've been through things that some people would call like trauma, difficult times, and we all have. It's amazing. Like, it's such a great victory for your family if you grew up without like ever having some kind of physical or emotional turmoil in your life. Everybody deals with those kinds of things. Again, I'm sure it was magnified by being in this very unique situation in a unique family. But as I spoke about on my last video, I'm really hesitant to make a huge deal about what any of the children or even the wives have to say at this point. Nothing that's been said has indicated to me like children were beaten and locked in closets, like really awful, criminally chargeable child abuse has not been put on the table by the actual people who lived this life so far. Maybe things will change, and as I've always said, I reserve the right to change my opinion when new information comes out. But basically what we have here is two siblings who, they're young, they're going through stuff, they just left home. I remember when I left home, just personally, I was kind of a mess. Like, I was in college and working out my life, right? I had a lot of emotional baggage I was carrying with me, and I needed to work it all out, and many of us go through that. The way I felt when I was like 18, 19 years old is not the way I felt by the time I was 25 or 35. Things will probably change for Peyton and Gwen as time goes on. Maybe they won't, but they probably will. It could get better or it could get worse. Who knows? Ultimately, Like, I think what they've shared with us has just really informed me that so much of what we saw on the show was not the real drama that was going on in the house every day. We missed out on so much interaction that was happening behind the scenes, right? But just like I'll take what Peyton says with a grain of salt, I'll also take what Gwen says with a grain of salt. I wish her all the best. I think it's great that she has a Patreon and people are paying to see her videos, to watch her on YouTube. She's making some money off of it, and that's going to help her, be able to afford her school. I think that that's wonderful, but I don't disavow like the other kids' experiences. Just because Gwen is so lovely and wonderful, that's great. But even people who don't come off as lovely, wonderful, enlightened, whatever, their experiences are still valid. I also sometimes think a lot of this comes down to like differences between like political thought. Maybe Gwen sees herself as being more liberal than Peyton and feeling like she needs to educate him in his responses. But I cannot stand when political ideology comes between the love that a family has for one another. I mean, I know everybody's got to make their own decisions about what they think, but I have people in my life who are very liberal, very conservative. I love them all. I respect their opinions. I believe that everybody's unique experiences informs how they think about the world around them, and it's not right or wrong, even when it may be like the opposite opinion about a situation. I don't know. That's just what I think about things. Am I crazy? Am I the only one? I can accept people as they are. So, Peyton is saying what he's saying. And I also do want to put out there that I found this message that Gwen wrote to a subscriber. That was interesting and informed me a little bit more about what's going on with some of the older kids. Okay, so here's the message, which was again posted to, I think, either TikTok or Sister Wives Facebook group. And basically, Gwen's subscriber on Patreon writes, "Hi Gwen, I'm curious if you and the other children still in college get financial help from Cody." People are asking this because they're like, it seems that the kids didn't get paid for their time on the show. And I think that's pretty much been confirmed. So they're like, is he helping you out? So this person says, why is he supporting all of Robin's children while they're in college? Just wondering if he is at least being fair with that aspect. Thanks. Okay, so Gwen wrote back as she's being very honest. Again, she seems like such a sweetheart. She says, he's very generous. I assume he's fair too. I know it's bad to talk about money, but I don't know why, so I'm going to talk anyway. One time my dad gave me and Isabel $8,000 each for college, and every time I was struggling, I could ask him for help, and he would either give me what he could spare or he would pay my rent, is how it ends. Okay, I mean, so it's good to know that he's not completely neglecting the financial needs of the older kids, at least not all of them. I mean, people can argue that like $8,000 isn't that much, but they do have a lot of kids. And, I think that it's good to hear that he's at least helping out. But I did want to point out that, Gwen has no way of knowing if he helps out all of his children in the same way. It's great to hear that he did this for Gwen and Isabel, but I have to wonder if Peyton ever got help like that. Maybe he did, or maybe he didn't. And some of what Gwen is saying and how she's speaking out about the family, it's going to once again be informed by these experiences, like her experiences that she can call her dad and ask for help, and he financially has helped her many times over. I would be really interested in knowing if Peyton has gotten the same treatment. So the point of all this just being that we have to take it all with a grain of salt, right? That's how I feel. I mean, of course, I want to validate how each of the kids are feeling, and I do care about them. I've watched them kind of grow up on that show. We all have for a while. We want them to be successful and have good lives. I'm reiterating once again that I think now is the best time to keep the show running, because at this point it's sort of like damage has already been done, and now is the time to kind of clean up the damage by using whatever money you get from the show to kind of facilitate conversation and discussion about how these kids and these wives are going to move forward out of polygamy, what their lives are going to look like now. So I am interested in seeing some of that as time goes on, and I will continue to check in on what Gwen and Peyton have to say. Some sources are reporting now that Gwen made some statements that it was McKelty who got into a big physical fight with Mary at one point in time. And Gwen is like, that's the only time I've ever seen Mary be physical with someone. But I mean, I'm sure that maybe that was like scary for McKelty or people around her when she's the adult in charge. I think that that's something else we have to remember when Gwen kind of says, like, Peyton is also physical. He's a physical person. It's like, yeah, but he was a kid when Gwen is claiming like some of these physical altercations, I guess, happened between herself and Peyton. Like he was a child and not a mother or father figure like Mary is. So there are different levels of responsibility between, those two people. Okay, guys, I'm heading off to bed. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow for another rabbit hole.